What if I told you one of the most celebrated groups in modern wrestling history was actually never friends? Bayley has just pulled back the curtain on a real relationship between WWE's Four Horsewomen, and her comments about Becky Lynch are going to change the way you see their entire story. These four women, Bayley, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, are credited with revolutionizing the business. They ushered in a new era for women's wrestling starting in NXT and taking over the main roster. We all assumed they were a tight knit family, a band of sisters who fought together to bring change to the world of pro wrestling. But hold on, you think you know the whole story? You don't. Bayley just admitted that the sisterhood we all believed in, well, might have never been for the cameras. Speaking on a recent episode of Raw Recap, Bayley got brutally honest about her history with Becky and Charlotte and revealed that the bond everyone thought was there was actually a lot more complicated than you think. This is what she exactly had to say. If I'm being quite honest, I've never been close to Becky. I've never rode to shows together with her. I've never been close to Charlotte. We've never had that relationship of like, oh, let's go out to dinner after that show. It was different. Can you believe that? They were never close. But it gets deeper. Bayley thought the history they shared fighting for the bigger purpose in WWE was enough to create a bond. Apparently not. She continued, I thought there were some type of unity there, though, with the history and everything that we have gone through to come up and do this together to bring a change in women's division. I thought it was a bond strong enough, but apparently not after all of these years. She still has some sort of insecurity and something against me that she's still hanging on. So what do you think? Was the Four Horsewomen unity just a myth? Is Becky Lynch holding on to an old grudge, or was there never a real friendship to begin with? Let me know it in the comments area below. Now, on the June 23rd episode of Monday Night Raw, Bayley, Becky Lynch, women's IC title on the line. We'll see how that plays out. If I had to guess, and I'm recording this before this match takes place, we're probably going to get like a no contest or some type of cheap finish, and that leads to an Evolution 2 rematch. Now, let's look into a little bit of history that Bayley has with all of these women. Bayley and Charlotte Flair. These two have feuded multiple times over championships on Raw and SmackDown, often representing opposite ends of the babyface/heel spectrum. Let's go to their NXT days. While in NXT, Charlotte was one of the first who turned heel on Bayley, attacking her to join Sasha Banks and Summer Rae in the BFF faction. Yes, I forgot that too. Raw Women's Championship feud in 2017. While on the main roster, Bayley was the babyface, and she feuded with Charlotte, who was the champion and a heel. At Fastlane 2017, Bayley retained and went over, beating Charlotte Flair, handing Charlotte one of her first losses on the main roster up to that point, which was a pretty big deal at the time. Then in 2019, Bayley turned heel. Their roles were reversed. After Charlotte had won the women's championship on SmackDown, Bayley cashed in her Money in the Bank briefcase on the same night that she won the title. And later that year, Bayley underwent a major character change, turning heel and debuting her role model persona. She defeated Charlotte Flair at both Clash at Champions and Hell in a Cell to retain her championship, cementing her new character and making it stand out very, very clearly. I feel like this is a feud that does not get enough love. They always have natural chemistry. They have natural chemistry in the ring. They have natural chemistry on the mic. Their in-ring psychologies, they work very well together. I would like to see this revisited. Maybe, you go with a Bayley being a heel, and well, no one wants Charlotte Flair as a babyface, even though they insist on having her work baby, but still, you have Charlotte as a heel, Bayley as a babyface. It just works. They haven't run this feud back in a few years, and if you always have a good product coming out of it, well, I don't see why you wouldn't just go ahead and do it again, but time will tell. Bayley and Sasha Banks, or Bayley and Mercedes Moné. The rivalry and partnership between Bayley and Sasha Banks is arguably one of the most storied of any of the two horsewomen, defining an era of women's wrestling in both NXT and on the main roster. I'm talking about NXT rivalry starting in 2015. Their feud of the women's championship is considered one of the greatest in the brand's history. As the ultimate babyface, Bayley chased the heel champion in Sasha Banks. Their feud culminated at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, where Bayley defeated Banks to win a title in a match widely hailed as a turning point for women's wrestling in WWE. They main evented the next NXT TakeOver Respect, in the first ever 30-minute woman Iron Man match, which Bayley won 3-2. 4 years later, it's the Boss and Hug connection. After years of on-again, off-again friendship on the main roster, they officially teamed together to become the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions at Elimination Chamber 2019, something in which both stars had pushed for. Following year, let's talk about the Golden Role Models and Ultimate Betrayal. In 2020, both women were heels and dominated WWE's programming. They held the Raw Women's Championship, being Sasha, the SmackDown Women's title being Bayley, and the Women's Tag Team Championships at the very same time. After losing those tag team titles, Bayley officially turned on Banks, reigniting their feud, and this led to a classic Hell in a Cell match where Banks defeated Bayley to win the SmackDown Women's Championships. Now, even though Mercedes Moné is on the outs with WWE as she is the belt collector over in AEW, there have been countless times where we have seen Bayley and Moné support each other on social media. Bayley going to Japan when Mercedes showed up in New Japan, and other various ways of just supporting her. They're clearly the two tightest of the groups, or members of the group, but it's still pretty cool to look at the dynamic. Last but not least, Bayley and Becky Lynch. Okay, these are two cornerstones of the women's division, and they took a minute to get to work together. So for much of their early runs on the main roster, Bayley and Becky were separated on other brands, were positioned as a top babyface, limiting their on-screen interactions. Fast forward 2022, their most significant program began after Bayley had returned from injury, created her new faction known as Damage Control with Dakota Kai and Io Sky, and targeted top stars of Monday Night Raw, including Becky Lynch. The feud became a deeply personal vendetta, and both women referenced their long and complicated history. Then, obviously, we get a steel cage match in February of 2023. The rivalry ended in a steel cage match on Monday Night Raw. And to counter interference from Damage Control, Becky Lynch enlisted the help of WWE Hall of Famer Lita, who neutralized Kai and Sky, allowing Lynch to defeat Bayley inside the cage and bring an end to their at least one-on-one feud. They worked a little bit later on, and obviously now, in June of 2025, it was Becky Lynch who took out Bayley, costing her the opportunity to challenge for the Women's Tag Team Championships at WrestleMania. She got, quote unquote, attacked in the backstage segment on night one of WrestleMania. And that really set the course, and it set the standard of what you could expect, what you should expect. Because Becky obviously won the women's tag team titles with Lyra Valkyria, turned heel on Lyra Valkyria if they lost the titles literally the following night. Feuded with Lyra, they went back and forth, exchanging, wins over each other. Ultimately, Becky getting the win, getting the championship. And now we're off to a feud between Bayley and Becky Lynch, which, hey, that should be interesting. As I said at the top of this video, I do think that they should hold off and at least do the big match at Evolution 2. In my opinion, I understand why they're doing this match on Monday Night Raw. It's a big match. It's probably going to be a main event. But in my opinion, that's your Evolution 2 main event, right? I think that would be significant. Clearly, they don't see it being like that. That's a shame. I think that's a mistake. But that's the direction they're going with. That's the direction in which we have to listen to. So we'll see how it all plays.